Technology and options are the way going forward is the view coming in from Vijay Swarup of ExxonMobil. But he also says that as we look at the options into the market, the crude oil demand will continue to grow as we look at the world economy perhaps going from 7 billion to 9 billion. So what would happen really is that you will have complementary research and demand increasing for all kind of fuels going forward. Let's listen into that slice of conversation as well.
From a research standpoint, we look at what the Prime Minister said and we look at what's being said, and what we're hearing is we need options. We need to find more ways to address what we call the dual challenge, which is how do you provide affordable, scalable, sustainable energy to a growing population, to a growing middle class, because as the middle class grows, so does your demand for things that in the U.S. we take for granted, washing machines, cars, simple things.
Sure.
And how do you provide those to a growing economy? So we need more options. Our research focuses on how do you do that, how do you get more efficient with what you have today, while we're looking for solutions for tomorrow.
The discussion that has been on in the Ceraweek today also is about, even as we are looking at smarter revolutions going forward, whether it's about biofuels, hybrids, combination of gas and oil, but the crude oil, would you agree with the fact that would continue to be the the most sought after fuel even after decades? So
yes, and the reason is multiple. The first reason is transitions take a long time in energy. So there's an infrastructure need, it's a big capital intense, and the volume, the scale of energy is very large. Okay, so oil is a very multifaceted energy source.
But Vijay, would you agree that even as we have been talking about another fuel, alternate fuel, etc., even after years, decades if I may say so, it still comprises a very small part of anything other than crude oil?
So again, you have to look at the overall mix, and you have to think about, even as we use oil in the future, we'll be using it differently than we're using it today.
Okay.
Remember, the population is growing as well. So 7 billion people are growing to 9 billion people, and the middle class in itself is growing. So you have the population overall growing, you have a subset of the population growing, and so the demand on things are growing. And that demand is satisfied. Oil satisfies a lot of that demand. Oil cuts across all the sectors. It cuts across transportation, power, and electricity. So you have to remember, it's all three sectors. You have to find something that can be satisfied at scale. We have to be more efficient in how we do it. We have to be more effective in how we do it. We have to look for alternate technologies like carbon capture. We have to look for alternate technologies like biofuels. But until those technologies are ready to be deployed at scale, we have to continue to go down the efficiency track, which means continuing to use what we use today as the demand grows, but using it more efficiently than we're using it today.
India as a country, do you think, continues to spend more in importing crude oil as we see that import bill ballooning, or do you see India also efficiently trying to put money into R&D for the option fuels? There have been conversations, but on ground, what's your sense?
Well, and again, I don't think those are competitive. Those are complementary. So India has to do what it has to do to solve its needs today and tomorrow. It also has to plan for the future. Some of the best minds in the world are in India. Some of the best universities in the world are in India. So channeling that mental capacity towards solving energy problems, and solving those energy problems specifically for India, can go a long way. So it's a natural tendency to say one versus the other, but I think these are more complementary.
Okay.
And I think there's a whole bunch of steps that you can take around this. India has a lot of things to choose from, which is great. It also has a big growth opportunity. It is a big growth opportunity. And it also has an opportunity to think about, well, how do we do this? What type of infrastructure do we want? What type of grid management do we want? And all of those things allow some choices to be made. Using the best minds, using the best universities only allow more optionality.
Okay.
I think it keeps coming back to, at this stage, you want optionality, you want to understand what your choices are, and you want to plan to use them in the best way.
And would you say the kind of policies or the policy reforms that we have seen in the last couple of years do contribute to that?
Well, it all helps. Okay? And again, policy and technology have to go together. As a research person, I can tell you that from a technology side, we need to advance technologies. We need to continue to do the research. The more options we have, the more research, and when I'm talking about research, it's not just at the lab level. You have to take it to where it's scalable. And once it's scalable, then you can really look at modifying, and the policy can really have a much more significant impact. But in the absence of technical solutions, and so from a technical community standpoint, we continue to say we have to up our game, we have to get better at the technology, we have to look for more options, and continue to provide society different options so that it can make the best choices specific to a geography or specific to a country.
So where do we stand right now when we look at the optionality part of it, or the kind of perhaps progress that we have made there, and where do you see us 5 years, maybe a decade later on?
Well, I mean, we're already doing things today that we couldn't imagine 10 years ago. And so some of the questions you're asking me about the way we explore, the way we extract, the way we deliver is very different than when I started in industry many, many decades ago. So it's very hard to imagine where we'll go. But if you look at where we're advancing, we're making significant advancements. Our company itself is doing significant amounts of research in carbon capture and in biofuels, two technologies that we think are key enablers to the pathway to meeting the dual challenge. So carbon capture, again, will allow you to take CO2 and put it back, store it away safely, so it's not in the air, not in the atmosphere. And of course, biofuels are going to be needed because as growing middle class, you know, the heavy trucks, the airplanes, it's going to be longer to even electrify those if it will ever be electric. That's a very, very difficult challenge. You need what's called a carbon density and energy density to move airplanes. And so it's going to be a hydrocarbon. That can be a biofuel. So why am I excited? Because we're seeing at the academic level, we're seeing at the small scale level, we're seeing some advances. We're seeing some breakthroughs. Ourselves, we're making progress in our algae program. We're excited about algae. We've set a target to be capable of 10,000 barrels by 2025. Okay. Now that's a small amount, okay? But it signifies that the biology is being understood, that the engineering is being understood, so that you can start imagining the steps to scale.
So this one is on a number, really. What, if you would want to answer, where are the investments right now, and how much would India as a country need to ensure that we move in the right direction at the right pace?
Yeah, I think that's an unknown in terms of the investment. I think what is known is we have to invest in technology, and we have to invest in research. And as those investments in research and technology come forward, we'll have a much better feel for what it takes to take things to scale. But a lot of this is still at the front end of the science pipeline, and I think we need to spend the time. You know, you don't know when the innovation will occur. You know that if you don't try, the innovation will not occur. Yeah. And so we are very committed to the research. We're committed to working with research partners. We're committed to trying to, it's all of the above, it's everybody working together. This is an unprecedented time for collaboration, and we keep looking for ways to solve
Final
this.
question.
Sure.
What do you think needs to be done even from here on to ensure that we move at a faster pace? I get your point. It's in the right direction, right pace, but where does the push come in from?
Well, I think, one, these conferences help. I think this interview helps. I think the education helps. I think explaining to people that you have to be efficient, explaining to people what the options are, explaining to people the urgency of coming up with options. And then the hardest part is the patience.
India has made tremendous progress. I've been coming here for 27 years, so I was here in I would call it the very early days, and you know, there's been this amazing progress since then. I think it's a very exciting time here. You know, for us, we've been investing in our own operations here. We have over 6,000 people in India now, over 4,000 engineers. It's high professionals. We have a lot of youth here in India. That's great. They want to make change, and we're very excited by that.
Mike, a company like Emerson would also always want to make longer-term investments. With the kind of policy changes that we have seen, and especially when we are into an election year, how important for you is the government support to ensure that the policies, the rules, regulations are all longer-term?
Yeah. You know, I think we appreciate what the government has been trying to achieve with some of the regulations and changes. We've been making our own investments. We've had great support from Invest India, for example. They've been a tremendous vehicle to work with, very supportive. They've worked with others around the country where we've had some things going. We have a large investment going on near Pune right now, a large manufacturing center. And we'll continue to make other investments in other parts of the country. We're in Chennai, we're in other parts of Delhi, we're in other parts.
So what are the kind of investments Emerson right now has in India?
So right now...
and how are you looking to increase it as well?
Yes, both good questions. So currently India for us is, you know, we have a kind of an India for India mentality. You know, we want to manufacture the products, the control systems, the software that we need to deliver to customers here and execute projects and provide the services to them after those projects, because those facilities go on for 20 or 30 years of time. We also use India as a major engineering hub for us on a global basis. So they're involved in our global designs, they're involved in our global projects. And it's been tremendous. And the experience that they've gathered and achieved by working all over the world, India gets a benefit of it because they live here and they work here. So we are making more investments. We expect things to become larger here. The economy, I think, will be the #2 economy someday. I hate to say that for my American friends, but it's kind of a destiny, I think, eventually that happens. You know, so we're going to be here. Again, we want to participate in the market. We support customers. I mean, that's the biggest part of why we're here.
So what are the total investments that you hold around globally, and what part of that really forms for India?
You know, Emerson makes investments globally. We tend to be kind of in the region for the region. One of the reasons we need to do that is our customers are different types of manufacturing companies. Once they've installed their infrastructure, you know, they need support, and they can't afford to be downtime for them is very painful, very costly. So we need to be in the region near them to be able to supply to them quickly, and also bring ideas to them. You know, we get to see a lot around the world. We get to kind of come, you know, have this big conversation on digital transformation right now, and it's those type of conversations we want to be present for.
Can I just push you for the number again, Mike? What number are we looking at in sense of investment in India?
You know, we have plans for a couple $100 million of investment here over a 5 to 10 year time frame, and that's very typical of the pace that we would go at and what we do.
All right, so that was the key highlights of what happened in the Ceraweek India Energy Forum today. With that, it's goodbye from us, but tomorrow would be yet another day, and we will get you, of course, the key oil companies and expectations and views from them as well, but that's until tomorrow.